You do realize, don't you, that I'm really not talking to you right now. The image you're watching was recorded and edited months ago, and depending on how well this series does, maybe even years ago. I am an illusion. When I recorded this, I was talking to a camera that had all the words I'm saying typed neatly on a screen in front of me. All my mistakes have been edited out to make me appear professional and good-looking. Good luck with that. This is counterfeit reality. This is giving you an impression that Bill has got it all together and has gotten it all on the first take. Not quite.
Action. I said action.
Yeah, in this session, Carl will give clear evidence that fossilization, fuzzination. I forgot what we actually wrote on that. I need to do that again. Yep, sorry.
Are you ready, Bill?
Yes.
What are you going to say exactly this time?
Who knows? Can't wait to hear what I'm going to say. In Hollywood and in the media, manipulation is the game. In this following session, I will show you how properly to discern and then question the images that we see every day. What is a worldview? It's your view of the world. Everybody go, duh, Bill. Bill, that's what it is. It's your view of the world. Now, there are certain basic questions that any good worldview will answer. And one of those questions deals with the question of origins. Everybody in here has a worldview. Your worldview is much like a set of glasses. It is your framework for understanding existence. That is your worldview. Everybody in here has one. And when it comes to the question of origins, that's a foundational, fundamental question that needs to be answered. How you answer this question will determine how you make your money, how you spend your money, how you view your parents, how they view you, how you view those who are about to enter this life, and those who are about to leave this life. So, we need to have corrected vision. Not just to read the newspaper, but to read the world around us. Speaking of the newspaper, not too long ago I read an article in the Denver Post dealing with something that is on the cutting edge in the business world. Very soon, they will be able to take you, put you in a place you've never been, doing things you've never done in a full-length feature film, and you won't be able to tell that it's not you. It's counterfeit reality. And there is a $1 billion a year business that has been developed to detect counterfeit reality. And it got me thinking that we have been immersed in a counterfeit reality as well. For example, in the last round of presidential elections, there were instances of counterfeit reality. How many of you saw this picture on the internet? It was widely circulated on the internet. Okay, let me see your hands. Okay. This is whom? John Kerry, candidate for president at the time, Democratic candidate, and Jane Fonda. But this picture was taken in the 1970s. Okay? In fact, it says, Fonda speaks to Vietnam veterans at anti-war rally. Now, during this particular time period, Jane Fonda was known to be an anti-war activist. So to couple her with John Kerry would then, what? Besmirch his character as well. People who were alive at the time that there were anti-war protests can testify to the fact that John Kerry and Jane Fonda never appeared on the same podium at the same time. They never spoke together. This is an altered photograph. It's a counterfeit reality. We are immersed in a counterfeit reality. We have a culture that is filled with myth information. We need to be prepared to dispel that myth. Now, what does it tell us? What does it tell us in Colossians 2:8? Colossians 2:8 tells us, see to it that no one takes you what? Captive through philosophy or empty deception, according to the tradition of men, according to the elementary principles of the world, rather than according to Christ. Do not get captured. And yet, we are immersed in a counterfeit reality all around us. And it's promoted various ways. It's promoted mainly through the media. I have a friend who gave me an article that I refer to often. It's an Associated Press article out of Tacoma, Washington. The article reported that a little boy, 12-year-old boy, had been kept in a coffin-sized box for 2 years because his step-grandmother feared he was brain damaged. Horrible story. Obviously a story of child abuse. The box was 6 feet by 2 feet by 3 feet. Now, once he was freed, psychologists who interviewed him reported that the little boy was overwhelmed when he came to the realization that not all little boys are kept in boxes. That he never tried to escape because, quote, he didn't know any different kind of life. Horrible story. What made it fascinating to me was they went on to report that the little boy was allowed out of the box regularly on 2 occasions. One was to go to the bathroom. The other was to attend church. Imagine yourself seated next to that little boy in church come Sunday morning and having him turn to you and say, "Excuse me, what color is your box? Is your box warm or cool?" Whoa! Baby, I'd be up out of that pew, down the aisle, out the door, changing membership right then, right there. You know what I mean? That would be very disconcerting. But I put to you that that is a clear picture of what's happening in the Christian community. Turn to the person seated next to you. Just look at him. Look at him. I know it's kind of scary in some cases, but just look at him. Just look at the person seated next to you. Do you see it? Do you see it? You can't see it, but it's there. It's a little coffin-shaped box called secularism. Secularism is the belief that there may or may not be a God, but even if there is a God, he's irrelevant in history, art, science, literature, music, philosophy. You're free once a week to climb out of your box and go do good deeds, like paint the widow's house, or go to church, or attend a conference. But don't you dare bring your faith to bear in the culture around you. How often have we heard that? You see, secularism is not neutral. Secularism is a belief system that is hostile. And at the core of secularism is the question of origins. The question of origins is a key question. And this whole issue of worldview, you hold to either a biblical worldview or you hold to a secular worldview. Secularism is not neutral, it is hostile to biblical Christianity. And when it comes to creation versus evolution, secularism clings to an evolutionary construct, and it promotes it throughout the culture. And you must understand that when it comes to secularism, nobody is better at conveying that to the culture than films. It affects our fantasy. It affects how we view the world. Because we think of Star Wars as entertainment, but no, it taught a generation to think from an Eastern mindset. Now, it's a dark film, and it's kind of scary, okay? But you need to be culturally relevant, so you need to see how this is conveyed to the culture, okay? So let's see this.
Luke, help me take this mask off
Hey, it's my fantasy, okay? You need to realize with whom you're dealing here, okay? Who's your daddy? You know, Star Wars was a highly successful film series, but it taught a generation to think from an Eastern mindset. When it first came out, I had many Christians say, wow, that's great, because we came out of a very dark period of film called film noir, and it was refreshing to see a hero, someone who had virtue. And so they said, look, the Force in Star Wars is like the God in the Bible. In fact, I still have people tell me this after seeing the latest Star Wars release. Well, let's analyze that. What's the problem with saying that? What's wrong with saying that the Force is like the God of the Bible? Well, let me ask this. Is the Force personal or impersonal? What about the God of the Bible? Well, is the Force, what is the Force? What is the Force? It comes from all living things, okay? So if you destroy nature, if you destroy the universe, what do you destroy? The Force. If you destroy nature or the universe, do you destroy the God of the Bible? No, because the God of the Bible is transcendent. He is outside of his creation, okay? But the Force has both the good side and the dark side. What about the God of the Bible? In him there is no evil. You see how you cannot mix these two together, and yet I find over and over and over people will take and they will Christianize certain films because they like them. Now, am I saying don't see this film? Am I saying that? Everybody look at me. Everybody look at me. Am I saying don't see that film? Everybody look at me and say, no. Do that with me, please. No. Some of you are directionally challenged this afternoon. Some of you are going. Some of you are going like this. Some of you are going, Bill, I am mature. I will not do that. Yes, you will, because if you don't do that, you'll come up and stand next to Bill and do it, because if Bill looks silly, everybody looks silly. And everybody goes, no. Some of you in the back are going, I can't do that. There is no compromise on this. There is no middle ground on this. We are immersed in a counterfeit reality. And it's conveyed mainly through films. And it flows from an evolutionary construct, because what you can see is that we can evolve into higher states of being. Now, what does Scripture tell us? Scripture tells us, of course, that they became what? Futile in their speculation. Professing to be wise, they became what? Futile in their speculation. What does futile mean? Obsolete. What else? Not productive. What else? Useless. Wasted. Silly. Goofy. Stupid. They became foolish, silly, goofy in their speculation. What is one of the goofiest, silliest notions out there? Evolution. And it's killing people. It kills people. If you don't believe me, you just come visit me where I live, just south of Denver. We'll drive about 20 minutes from my house, and we'll visit a site that rocked this nation. What was that site? Columbine High School. Now, hear me carefully. Those two shooters, they learned their lessons well. Hear me carefully. I'm not saying that some teacher told them to go out and shoot people. That would be absurd. However, from the day they entered the system until the day they pulled the trigger, they were trained to think what? That they are nothing more than what? Mistakes of nature. They are cosmic jokes. So why not live fast, die young, and leave a good-looking corpse? For me, it's too late. But they followed their worldview. Ideas have what? Consequences. Good ideas have? Good consequences. Bad ideas have? Drastically bad consequences. Well, this even affects the area of what I call speculative science. Speculative science. But it is not a science issue. You must understand that. It is a worldview issue. This has nothing to do with evidence. How many of you have used evidence in talking with an evolutionist? Have you used evidence? Let me see your hands. How many of you have found it to be very, very fruitful? No hand. You know why? It doesn't matter how much evidence you give them, it's how they what? See it. It's their interpretation of the evidence. Creationists and evolutionists have access to the same set of facts. This piece of gum here on the floor, for example. There's no gum, just wanted to make you look. And one of them says it's very old, the other one says, no, it's very young, and they debate back and forth and forth and back, and finally someone walks over and he goes, no, it's fresh. It is not the evidence that is in question. It is your interpretation of the evidence. And you must understand that this whole concept of evolution is conveyed through the culture very, very well through films. Perhaps you remember this one. This was a very influential film in conveying a worldview based on evolution. You probably didn't realize I had such an illustrious film career. These are actual outtakes that ended up on the cutting room floor. What's the problem with Jurassic Park? The problem is that it is speculative science. Here's a question for you. We're talking about worldviews, and your worldview is your set of lenses through which you filter everything, that ideas have consequences. Another way of saying this is that our assumptions determine our conclusions. Our assumptions determine our conclusions. Okay, so here's what happens. I want you to listen carefully to what Dr. Grant has to say. Here we go.
It's a little distorted, but I don't think it's a computer.
Oh. Postmortem contraction of the posterior neck ligaments. Velociraptor?
Yeah, it's good shape, too. It's 5, 6 feet high, I'm guessing 9 feet long. Look at the What'd you do?
He touched it. Dr. Grant's not machine compatible.
Oh, he got it in for me. And look at the half-moon-shaped bones in the wrist. It's no wonder these guys learn how to fly. No, seriously. All right. Well, maybe dinosaurs have more in common with present-day birds than they do with reptiles.
Look at the pubic bone, turned backward, just like a bird. Look at the vertebrae, full of air sacs and hollows, just like a bird.
And even the word raptor means bird of prey.
That doesn't look very scary. More like a 6-foot turkey.
A turkey, huh?
Oh, no.
Okay. Try to imagine yourself in the Cretaceous period. You get your first look at this 6-foot turkey as you enter a clearing. He moves like a bird, lightly bobbing his head. And you keep still because you think that maybe his visual acuity is based on movement, like T-Rex, and he'll lose you if you don't move. But no, not Velociraptor. You stare at him, and he just stares right back. And that's when the attack comes, not from the front, but from the side. From the other two raptors, you didn't even know were there. Because Velociraptor's a pack hunter, you see. He uses coordinated attack patterns, and he is out in force today. And he slashes at you with this 6-inch retractable claw, like a razor, on the middle toe. He doesn't bother to bite your jugular like a lion, say. No, no. He slashes at you here, or here.
Well.
Or maybe across the belly, spilling your intestines. The point is, you are alive when they start to eat you. So, you know, try to show a little respect.
Okay.
Okay. Try to show a little respect. Okay. How many facts and how many assumptions? How much science fiction? Well, let's find out. He starts off by saying, when they see this thing, he says, Velociraptor, and he gives the dimensions of it. Fact or fiction? Fact. Okay. Fact or assumption? It's fact. Okay. And he says, look at the half-moon-shaped bone in the wrist. No wonder these things learned how to fly. Well, does it have a half-moon-shaped bone in the wrist? Yes, that's a fact. You can put it under fact. What about, no wonder these things learned how to fly? Assumption. And everybody in the film titters and laughs. And he says, no, really. He said, perhaps dinosaurs had more in common with modern-day birds than they did with reptiles. Fact or assumption? Assumption. And then he goes on to say, he says, look, his pubic bone is turned backwards just like a bird. Fact or assumption? Fact. Well, there are bird-hipped and there are lizard-hipped dinosaurs, right? Okay, but a dinosaur is always what? Dinosaur, okay? So it's a fact that it's turned backwards, but my question is, so what? Okay? And it says, his bones are full of air sacs and hollows just like a bird. Fact or assumption? Fact. Okay? And then he goes on to say what? How they hunt because the little boy challenges him. Looks like a 6-foot turkey to me. And so Dr. Grant says, okay, imagine yourself in the Cretaceous period. You enter a clearing and you spot Velociraptor and you stand still because you think his visual acuity is based on movement, just like T-Rex. That's an assumption on top of an assumption on top of an assumption. They can't tell you how your dog sees, and he's going to tell you how Velociraptor saw based on T-Rex, for which we don't even have a eyeball. That's an assumption on top of an assumption on top of an assumption. And he says, he's lightly what? Bobbing his head just like a bird. Fact or assumption? Assumption. And then he says, you think by standing still, he won't do this. But no, because Velociraptor is a pack hunter. Assumption. And the attack doesn't come from the front, but from the side, from the two raptors you didn't even know that were there. Assumption. Because the assumption is he does what? He eats meat. Why? He has sharp teeth. Okay, now just because you have sharp teeth, does that necessarily mean you were designed to eat meat? Now, do I have sharp teeth? Yes. Just because I have sharp teeth, does that necessarily mean I was designed to eat meat? No, there's a huge bat in South America, has huge fangs and claws, and he uses these fangs and claws to rip and tear and shred the skin right off. Guava. Everybody go, ugh. Everybody do that with me. Ugh. And your question to me is, what's guava? And guava, of course, is fruit. He's nothing but a fruit bat because he eats nothing but, thus the name, fruit bat. Have I made my point here? Just because you have sharp teeth does not necessarily mean you were designed to eat meat. But he doesn't bother to bite your jugular like a lion does, okay? Fact or assumption? Assumption. Okay. He slashes at you with this 6-inch retractable claw. The claw is fact because you have one of those, right? We can have one of those. We can find one. Now, what about the retractable part? I would say it's a safe assumption. I would even give it as a fact because you can see the tendon attachment on the claw like you can on a cat's claw. So I wouldn't have a problem with that. But what's the problem? The idea that he does what? Slashes at you. Again, fruit bat. You see how many assumptions? He says, therefore, be sure that you show what? Respect. You see how many facts and how many assumptions, but they're all balled together and presented as what? Counterfeit reality. And we are immersed in a counterfeit reality. It is all around us. And again, we must realize, are people like Dr. Grant stupid? Everybody look at me and say, no. I'm serious, do that with me. No, they're not stupid. Are they crazy? Everybody look at me and say, well, don't say crazy. Are they crazy? Everybody look at me and say, no. They're neither unintelligent nor are they insane. You know what they are? They're blind. You must understand that Scripture tells us that much knowledge puffs up.